I will go next now. We mentioned this guy earlier, and I do just want to bring up Lauri Markkanen. And I actually want to give you the floor first because I think that you brought up a really, really good point with Lauri recently on Twitter in terms of why you think he's been as successful as he's been this season in terms of just comfort level in the mid range. So I know this is my guy, but I'm going to give you the floor because I thought your point was actually really, really good.
Yeah. So first of all, I appreciate that. Second of all, yeah, to me, like what's always been kind of a conundrum with Lowry is even though he's 7 feet tall, he's never felt 7 feet tall on court. Like every time you watch him play,
Mm.
like it's always been like this guy. Yes, he's big, he's tall, but you never feel it. And I think I felt this so much watching the Clippers play yesterday on both ends. Like I think he started to really find this last year, but now you really saw it start to happen with Finland at Eurobasket. And now like it's really popping in the league. And it's just the overall control. Like I think it's easy to look at and be like, well, he's really creating separation now in a way that I don't think he ever did. His handle's tighter. He's honestly like he's more spry on the court. I'd be interested to know what his overall like off-season training was and how he tried to refine his body. But it's just the control inside the arc. Like it feels like he gets the most out of extensions. It feels like he gets the most out of his length and just like his footwork is tighter. It doesn't feel like he's playing down in size anymore. And I think that plays out very cleanly in what his actual 2-point percentages are. Like he went from being a guy who his first 2 years didn't even shoot 50% on twos, really improved the last couple years. But this year, he's at 64% on twos on almost 10 a game. And that, to me, it doesn't feel fluky because of, like, I think, will that percentage come down slightly? It might. But to me, a lot of he's been so aggressive attacking the glass in a way that I never used to feel from him. Like he always used to be somebody who it felt like he was, and part of it could be scheme, but like one of the things I've mentioned this conversation before actually on here, but like I talked to John Cole Jones about spacing one time and like the difficulty of like trying to figure out how to be aggressive and a dominant interior force while also being a spacer. And I think to me, Lowry's kind of finding that balance this year and almost like obviously tilting more towards like really figuring out how to attack the glass and find meaningful ways to imprint his size on the game. And that's just never something that I never felt that from him in prior seasons. So to me, like has like a lot of what feels like where I feel a lot of his scoring bursts is coming from, like, yes, the self-created stuff is happening, but so many of his baskets that have led to the increase in points per game are out of doing the easy things, like finding the garbage baskets, finding putbacks, finding ways to cut and be active without the ball. And it's just been very fun to watch, man. I've absolutely loved this season.
So yeah, it's interesting. I do think that he has gotten stronger, I guess I would say. Like it feels like he has gotten, it doesn't look like he's put on weight, but it feels like he accepts contact and absorbs contact better. Here's the thing, like he was never coming up like in Finland and in Arizona, he was never just like a pure floor spacer. He was always actually like a mid-post like shooter more than anything. Like he would catch the ball, 14 feet from the basket, pump fake and try to drive, or like most of the time he try and rise up and shoot. And he's always been like a really, really good contested shot maker. And he has never gotten that opportunity to really do that in the NBA, in part because look at the situations he was in. He was in Chicago to start his career, and the early Chicago run was kind of a disaster. That was the Fred Hoiberg gets fired, and then Jim Boylan takes over, and Jim Boylan's going to develop this bench, baby.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to develop this bench. He has 15 guys to develop. He can't prioritize Wendell Carter. He can't prioritize Lauri Markkanen. He needs to develop all 15 guys on this roster.
Denzel Valentine is going to be the one.
Oh, my God. Jim Boylan. Imagine the uncle you're going to see at Thanksgiving that has some questionable takes. That was basically who was running the Chicago Bulls for 2 years, I guess that was, before Billy Donovan took over. But then he goes to Cleveland, and in Cleveland, he was just a floor spacer because they had him playing the 3 and they desperately needed the floor spacing, right? And he played the 4 from time to time when they took Jared Allen and Evan Mobley off the court, and he defended fours for the most part. Evan slid out and did a lot of the work, defending away from the basket to get Lauri out of those positions. But again, like, was resigned to being a floor spacer. I think that this time in Utah, and we should also point to his time at Eurobasket this past year, where he was everything for a Finland team that really surprised basically on his back, because he was phenomenal during that tournament. And it was a lot of similar things to what he's done so far this season for Utah, where he'd catch the ball in the mid post, pump fake, shoot over the top, take a ton of tough contested shots. Lauri can do this stuff. Like that's the thing that I think has gotten lost, and because he may not have been strong enough early in his career to do it, and because his career has been kind of,
it's been a weird career.
It's been stop and starty with injuries. Like, he's consistently missed, somewhere between 20 and 30 games every season. And he's never really been able to build up that momentum and thus like become an integral part of a team's offense if you don't know if he's going to be like in and out of the lineup here and there. In Utah, they just don't have another reason not to give him the ball. And they've given him the ball, and he's been incredibly effective so far. So I have really, really enjoyed what Lauri has done this season. And I think in large part, it's just due almost to like getting back to what he's always been good at, kind of. Like right now, if you look at his part of this is, I think that he is shooting somewhat in like unsustainably from the mid range. He's shooting 55% from 3 to 10 feet. He's shooting 66% from 10 to 16, and he's shooting 54% from 16 to the 3-point line. And like, those probably won't hold, especially given that a lot of those are really contested shots that he's shooting over the top. And look, like his volume on a lot of these shots is like a little bit higher than what you would think. He's taken more mid-range shots than he has 3-pointers this year. But you know what? If they're going to fall like this, he do this.
Yeah. And the one last thing I would want to hit on with him too, what I just most enjoy about him is the scoring versatility. Like, they use him. Part of it is Utah's offense, and like their offense has been a joy to watch early in the season, but he kind of just can do everything to a degree. And I think that's what makes him so interesting. Like, you have to guard him as a popper. You have to worry about him as a closeout threat. Now they're really creative in finding ways. Like they love running like a lot of fake screening actions to try and set things up on the interior for him, which I love. He's just, I continuing to watch him develop the way that he has, like it kind of blows my mind a little bit considering where I was at with him in like, 2019 compared to now. It's very fun to watch.
Yeah, like it's definitely a lot of ghost and slip actions, right? And it's really, really interesting, like the lineups that they play him in, where this is the first time where it's felt like fully positionless on some level offensively in the scheme he's been in, right? Because like the Boylan scheme was a fucking nightmare in Chicago. I will take shots at that dude forever, because that guy, I don't know how that happened, how Chicago let that happen. In Cleveland, he was purely a floor spacer, and that team played 2 bigs with him, and it had to be so defined, right? This is the first like free offensive scheme where they're playing 5 out with floor spacers, or when Jared Vanderbilt's on the court, he's basically in the dunker spot trying to attack the offensive glass or screening. And he's athletic enough to play away from the basket and handle the ball away from the basket enough. So it's really the first true like 5-out scheme, freedom of movement, try and get mismatch opportunities in a big way for him that he's played in. And I think that as much as anything is why he's able to take advantage of that, because he is a very real mismatch nightmare when he gets that opportunity.